Good day, everyone. Welcome to Real Conservative News. I'm your host, Nathaniel Rajkumar. Starting off locally here in Trinidad and Tobago, United States ambassadorial nominee Jennifer Johnson Carroll has raised concerns over the security landscape in Trinidad and Tobago, warning that the frequent implementation of states of emergencies does not bode well for the Twin Island nation's stability. Remember, Kamala convinced her base to love the Trump administration. Now, I always support Republicans over Democrats anyhow, because even though the Republicans are imperfect, and even though Trump is doing a lot of crap when it pertains to trying to bully Israel and treat Israel as though that's a state of the United States of America, and he's the king over Netanyahu, and instead of telling Israel to finish the job in Gaza, he's telling them, oh, don't come and mess up my deals. I don't want to stray from the point. The whole point is, I have biases with Trump. But the Republicans are the better party, because the radical leftist alphabet soup, jihadist loving, now they are the right people, the far right QAnons who love the jihadists too, but the radical left, right? The ones with the alphabet soup and stuff like that, and the socialists and socialism on steroids. Once they're in office, they continue to utterly destroy America, right? Promote a whole lot of evil on all kind of different levels, where women can't even safely participate in female sports without men participating as well and endangering these women's lives. Nevertheless, but Kamala has convinced her UNC left-leaning population to actually support the Trump administration. But let's see if this will continue now that a Trump appointee, someone that he has nominated, right, to become the ambassador for the US here in Trinidad and Tobago, saying that the SOE doesn't seem as though it's effective, in other words, and this constant use of an SOE isn't changing the fact that there's a crime crisis here in our country. And also, to top it off, I've said this from the very beginning. You think it's only America watching at that? America looking at us, and the world is looking at us as though that can't be a safe zone to go. You're destroying our chances to improve our tourism here in Trinidad and Tobago, Kamala, because a state of emergency tells the world that our country is under crime crisis, and therefore it's extremely dangerous to go and travel in that country. You're being counterproductive by what you are doing. You want to pretend as though you are the greatest crime fighter on earth. You and your rough men in the TTPS. And what you're doing instead is making our country look like a total banana republic, a papi show, a lawless nation in truth. You want to promote tourism in a lawless nation? That makes sense? No, what you're supposed to be doing is reforming the Trinidad and Tobago police so that they can conduct proper, legitimate, constitutional investigations so that they can be able to solve various types of crimes, including murder and gang-related activities and turf wars and so forth. That is what you're supposed to be doing instead of declaring a state of emergency. The entire world thinks as though our whole country is in a complete chaos, right? Which it is to an extent, but it is not the way that America, the world is thinking that they're thinking that we are Haiti right now because of what Tyrant Cams is doing. But yo, getting back to the news report, because it's going to be a little long. Testifying before the U.S. Senate Foreign Relations Committee during her confirmation hearing, Trinidadian-born nominee highlighted the recurring emergency declarations as a clear indicator that deep-rooted criminal networks and violent gang activity remain severe and unresolved. Yeah, that's the same thing I showed you. No matter how long you continue with this SOE, you're incompetent, arrogant, waste of taxpayers' dollars. TTPS cannot solve crime. They cannot acquire, they cannot obtain the evidence needed in order to be able to charge individuals with crimes so that these people can end up being imprisoned. What happens instead? These people win lawsuits against the state for wrongful arrest, false imprisonment, and malicious prosecution, because what ends up happening to try to save their reputation within the TTPS, a lot of times these wonderful rough men fabricate evidence against individuals they suspect or just don't like. They suspect of committing a crime or simply just don't like. Johnson Carroll explained that relying on these extreme legal measures serves as an international warning sign rather than a cure. You understand? An international warning sign that something is wrong with this country. How can we go and visit there knowing that they are under a state of emergency? State of emergency is usually because there's a huge crisis. There's looting and burning down of buildings and stuff like that. There's widespread violence. That is what is usually considered to be a valid reason for having a state of emergency. So in the eyes of these international agencies, traveling agencies, and the governments of these countries, they're thinking as though telling you that we are Haiti. So Johnson Carroll explained that relying on these extreme legal measures serves as an international warning rather than a cure, signaling that local law enforcement is struggling to contain the crisis. She concluded that these persistent security threats alongside porous borders directly jeopardize foreign investment, hurt tourism, and complicate efforts to protect thousands of American citizens residing in or traveling in to the country. Brilliant Roger Alexander. And Kamala Persad-Bissessar didn't realize that what you're doing is making our country look like a failed state. A failed state that after 1 year, your precious, wonderful state of emergency still can't solve the crime crisis, still can't end the gang warfare, the turf wars. Such a brilliant woman you are, Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissessar, aren't you? And you know, you're so arrogant. Somebody like this, a wise, conservative, intelligent woman, African woman, a Trinidadian woman, trying to show you that what you're doing, in other words, is counterproductive. And you know, you will come up with some kind of reason to be able to still justify your actions. And you will ignore this woman and probably even claim that she's a PNMite. I'm sure most likely that's what the administration is going to do next. Demonize this woman. Part of Gary Griffith's response to this. It will be easy for me, remember it's he speaking now, not me. It will be easy for me to gloat over the concerns expressed by United States Ambassador-designate Jennifer Johnson Carroll, because they reinforce what I have consistently stated, which is a state of emergency must never be used as a crime-fighting tool. I've been saying that as well in my humble capacity as a working-class citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. But this is not a time for political point scoring. I'm happy for you, Gary Griffith. I'm taking this point. I am taking the point because you know why? The kind of insult people like myself and you all as well have been enduring from people like David Welch and others, Philip Edward Alexander, and the whole UNC crew online. People unfriended me because I told them what they're doing is wrong. It's idolatry to be just continuing to blindly support an administration that is trampling upon our constitutional rights here in Trinidad and Tobago. Right? We have a right to gloat a little bit. Nevertheless, getting back to what he said. It is time for the government to recognize the seriousness of what is being said, particularly by the proposed representative of the United States, our largest trading partner and the country with which this government has so closely aligned itself. You hear what Gary Griffith said? He's not a PNM. A PNM will say, oh, don't even study what Trump trying to do or say or what the Trump administration is saying or representatives saying, you know, because I'm the white man trying to control me, Jed. Gary Griffith isn't saying that. Gary Griffith is acknowledging the same thing that I've been saying for a long time. America is our greatest trading partner, and therefore we need to keep close ties with them. Keep out of their business other than that, though. When they have out their issues with Venezuela and stuff, just shut up for once, Nakamla. Because at the end of the day, Trump not actually protecting us either, or trying to build our economy either. So you know what? Keep quiet. Stay out of the way, Jay. Getting back to what Gary Griffith said. When law enforcement requires emergency powers to detain citizens without evidence, What charges? It exposes a failure to convert intelligence into admissible evidence and to use extensive powers already available to the police. Haven't I been saying that for months now? Months now, that if police could only do their job during an SOE, and they're still not doing it good, it shows their incompetence. It shows their incompetence. It shows that they're incapable of conducting effective investigations that can lead to charges being laid against criminals. Do you understand that? But instead, what this government has done is said, you know what, we are going to ignore the fact that the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is incompetent and corrupt. And what we are going to do is give them powers to detain people without being able to acquire the evidence they need to prosecute them and imprison them in a democratic way with real due process. People like David Watcher talk about due process. There's no due process right now under the state of emergency. Coconut man here. Anyhow, temporarily restricting suspected criminals and then boasting that crime has fallen is like preventing the opposing football team from reaching the ground and claiming victory by default. Exactly. And some of the times, in some cases, you have no evidence whatsoever to prove. But what I'm saying is, a lot of the times, some of these people are actually innocent, you know. Some. I'm not saying all, but in some cases, they actually end up proving that they were innocent to begin with, and that's why the state ends up awarding them a lot of money. That is not effective policing, and it's not how a democratic country should be secured. Haven't I been saying that as well? This is not how to govern a democracy. This is not how. But for some reason, UNT people claim that they don't like autocracy and dictatorship once PNM is in power. But they love police, and they love police abuse of power. They have always loved police abuse of power. They just pretend they're against it when PNM is in office to an extent. Something, boy. I don't know if it's how India has a way of using the police to abuse people as well. Huh? But then Mama Africa does it as well, so I don't know, boy. There's just a cursed world we're living in. Continuing with his statement there, he said, these are not merely domestic political criticisms that can be dismissed, attacked, or ignored. Exactly. This is coming from the United States of America. States of emergency can also create wider consequences. They affect international confidence, investment, tourism, and perceptions of political and social stability. That I was showing you. People right now in the world thinking as though our country is in chaos, not realizing it's just crime. I mean, crime is bad, but what I'm saying is, there's no actual chaos in our country. There's no rioting. There's no actual wars to say, like, you know, civil wars or anything like that, like in Haiti. This Kamala administration and her brilliant, very brilliant genius, Roger Alexander, is painting a very bad picture for our country on the international forum. In the international forum. That's what they're doing. They may temporarily suppress visible criminal activity, but they do not dismantle organized criminal networks, secure our borders, improve intelligence gathering, or correct weakness within the national security apparatus. As Minister of National Security, I oversaw the greatest reduction in serious crime in 31 years without a state of emergency, Gary Griffith said. As a Commissioner of Police, I relied on targeted operations, predictive and intelligence-driven policing, technology, and accountable leadership, not indefinite detention without charge. Now, I must give credit when credit is due. He's right. Now, I do believe, and I will never change my mind about that he also benefited from the lockdowns and the state of emergency and people's fear for the virus that was around at that point in time. And the media was pushing and using fear-mongering about at that point in time. People were afraid to go, not to mention the curfew, so people will not be able to roam the streets like the way that they usually would. So I do believe, and I told him that in the past, and he also benefited from reduction of crime due to these extensive lockdowns, actual lockdowns, and of course due to the SOE. He will never admit that, but that is the fact. Same way UNC benefiting from it to an extent, he also did. But he had to give Jackie jacket. There really was an even greater reduction in crime during his term time in as Commissioner of Police. And therefore, it may not be, it will be probably for two reasons, as I said before. The lockdowns were different now. There's an SOE now, but there's no actual lockdown. There's no curfew, right? But maybe, just maybe, we have to actually give him some credit also for using these type of policies and also acknowledge the fact that, yes, Gary Griffith never detained people for months upon months without having any sort of evidence in order to be able to charge them with a crime. So as much as I don't agree with him taking full credit for crime being reduced during that era, he is right to a significant extent. Moving on with his statement, he said the government must understand that suppressing crime temporarily is not the same as dismantling criminal networks. Exactly. You're putting a plaster on an open sore, Kamala. You're not removing the sore. You're not healing the sore. All the gangs still there existing and killing each other still. You're just finding new ways to do it to an extent. Repeated states of emergency also damage public confidence. I'm never showing you what business wants to come and invest in Trinidad and Tobago, thinking as though we are in a crisis, our country is falling apart like Haiti. So repeated states of emergency also damage public confidence, international perceptions, investment, and our reputation as a stable democracy. So, well said, Gary. The ambassador designates comments should therefore be treated as an opportunity for me to say, no. The ambassador's designates comments should therefore not be treated as an opportunity for me to say, I told you so. They should be treated as a warning. Now he's right. The ambassador is basically trying to send a very respectful warning to the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. You're going down a wrong path. Same thing that I've been telling her for months now. Kamala Pasabi says you are destroying our democracy. And most of all, the UNC, our UNC party will never have a chance. This yellow UNC party will never have a chance of winning an election again as long as you continue with this utter nonsense. Having said that, I told you so. Gary Griffith may not want to say it, but I will say it. I told you so. Trinidad and Tobago needs competent leadership and a comprehensive intelligence-led crime plan. Not this. Not this. The UNC promised that they were going to have a real crime plan. And all they did instead was hire a man like Roger Alexander, give him one of the most powerful positions in the government, and using an SOE to lock up people without evidence. Not another temporary suspension of citizens' rights presented as national security policy. Well said, Gary Griffith. My response, I won't be surprised if Tyrant Camps accuses the Trump-nominated conservative Jennifer Johnson Carroll of being a PNM troll. That the next thing they're going to start to say, oh, she had to be with the PNM and the PNM media using her and ding. I want to say that's how radical and vindictive Kamala has become. If she doesn't, well, then I'll be thankful. Hopefully she just stays quiet, but hopefully she does the right thing instead and end this SOE. I say this on a daily basis. Roger Alexander, Kamala, John Jeremy, and Tanku. I don't really remember to mention Tanku quite often, but it is true. Tanku has transformed the UNC into an extra evil version of the PNM. The tribal PNMites will be angry with my statements about PNM being evil, but it is true. Tyrant Camps is adopting all of PNM's oppressive and demonic policies. Even Michaela Pandey had to say it recently. The same policies UNC was campaigning against, they are now implementing. In the eyes of the world, we are now another failed state like Haiti. Don't think for a moment that the so-called boss Trump, a lot of UNC people here in Trinidad and Tobago who were my friends, love Trump. So don't think for a moment that your so-called boss Trump is pleased with our tyrants' undemocratic and unconstitutional crime-fighting strategies. Because with all but Trump making certain mistakes and disrespecting Israel, he is still governing America in a democratic way. It's the radical left that loves socialism, which leads to communism, not the Republicans. Democrats are the ones who are well known for locking up people without giving them a fair trial. You all remember that? A lot of the individuals that I think it's the January 6th event, right? Yeah, a few years ago. And they claimed that there was an insurrection. Republicans love their rights to bear arms. If they wanted an insurrection, they wouldn't have gone with banners and flags, waving and singing hymns. That's not how people plan an insurrection. That's a whole different discussion. Nevertheless, a lot of these individuals that foolishly followed radical people that went into the Capitol building, people like that would belong to Antifa and BLM, a lot of these individuals ended up being locked up and were not charged with a crime, but were locked up for a very long space of time. I've heard about it. So therefore, it says the radical left that does that. Thus far, we haven't heard about anything like that taking place under the Trump administration.
Weather report for Trinidad and Tobago on Saturday, August 1st, 2026. The weather in Trinidad and Tobago will be variably cloudy, hazy, and breezy with a maximum temperature of 31 degrees Celsius and a minimum temperature of 25 degrees Celsius. The official forecast indicates isolated morning showers will give way to a mostly fair and breezy night. The maximum heat index is expected to feel like 34 degrees Celsius with humidity levels ranging from 70% to 95%. Winds will blow from the east-southeast to south-southeast at speeds of 5 to 40 km per hour with occasional higher gusts. Spring tides remain in effect across the islands. Open waters will experience slight to moderate sea conditions with wave heights ranging from 1.0 meter to 1.5 meters. Sheltered areas will see calmer waves measuring near 1.0 meter. All marine operators and coastal visitors are advised to exercise caution, particularly during peak high tide hours.
International news now. Can a terrorist organization actually be disarmed? President Trump is increasing pressure on Israel as he announces a historic Hamas disarmament deal, which U.S. officials say could help prevent another October 7th. Instead of allowing Israel to finish the job, now Trump is trying to bully Israel into submission, even when it pertains to Gaza, which is right by their border. Boy, I'm telling you, God will deal with you, you know, Trump. God will deal with you. You want to continue to be considered the peacemaker of the whole world. And you continue to try to bully Israel into submission as though you are the king of Israel. God will hold you accountable. You do a lot of good in America. I will always say that you do a lot of good in America. You don't show compassion for people who are immigrants in America, though. I'm not talking about the legal ones. We are talking about the illegal ones. But we're supposed to, as Christians, we're supposed to still show compassion. Get rid of the illegal gang members, and other criminals who have committed serious crimes. Send them back to their countries. But you're not showing compassion to the individuals who are genuinely trying to get an honest job, working on farms and so forth, working in the restaurants, working very hard to take care of their families. You're not showing any kind of compassion for them. And that's what I have a problem with. Nevertheless, you're doing a very good job in America, right? But in the Middle East, you continue to try to make deals with terrorists. You're making friends with the wrong type of people, with leaders like the President al-Julani in Syria, and with the Qataris, and continuing to make deals with the Iranian Ayatollah and IRGC terrorists. You start a good job and then you can't finish it. You will attack Iran and then stop again and pause again, just like you have done again. I'm not surprised at all. Just to continue negotiations, even though you know to yourself that they will never ever comply. They will never actually keep to their word and follow any sort of instructions, terms and conditions set by the United States of America in those deals. They will never abide by those deals. Trump is warning Israel not to derail his Gaza reconstruction plan. You now had a meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu and you're already disrespecting him, man. I'm telling you, Netanyahu needs to become more tough and come out plainly and say, Trump, you are not the king of Israel. We value America as our closest ally in the world, but have respect for our sovereignty as a nation. Have respect for us as your greatest ally in the world. Today, the Board of Peace reached yesterday, the Board of Peace reached a historic agreement for the complete disarmament of Hamas and all other armed groups in Gaza. This, of course, is a monumental step toward lasting peace and security, Trump wrote. You cannot negotiate with terrorists. You cannot get them to disarm. You have to negotiate with them to disarm. You have to force them to do so. My response, Trump truly believes that he's the king of Israel. Idolaters don't realize that he's under the control of the Antichrist spirit. I don't know if he's the Antichrist. He definitely displays a whole lot of the qualities of the Antichrist, a lot of the personality descriptions of the Antichrist. Right? But I don't know if he is the actual man of sin. Definitely a forerunner. Definitely a forerunner. So people will say, like some of my friends here in Trinidad and Tobago who are conservatives say, you see what I'm talking about? You really don't know where you stand. Yeah, I stand with the Bible. And that is why I could say, yes, Trump does a lot of good, but yet he's doing a lot of nonsense as well. Just like here in Trinidad and Tobago. I will close with this. I will always say that the UNC administration will do better when it pertains to infrastructure development, improving our health care and education system. Doesn't mean that they're not doing a lot of nonsense as well, because they are transforming our nation even more into a greater dictatorship than what the mighty Morphin Ghanaian coal pot bicycle, no harm, no macaroni pie, wean off the government, tighten your belt, whole strain, PNM did.
Psalm 25, 1-3. A prayer expressing absolute trust in God, patient expectation, and the assurance that those who look to Him will never be put to shame. To you, Lord, I lift up my soul. My God, I trust in you. Do not let me be put to shame, nor let my enemies triumph over me. No one who hopes in you will ever be put to shame, but complete confusion will come to those who are treacherous without cause.
Folks, that brings us to the end of today's news report. Thanks again to everyone who continues to support my content. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Stay blessed and stay safe, most of all, in Jesus' name.